Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by Pancrase Featherweight Andy Main. Andy, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good. Thanks for asking. Andy, you got a fight coming up at Pancrase 270 on October 4th. How's training been going for the fight?
Excellent. I feel as good as ever. I've got my camps down to a science pretty much, and I just feel excellent, better than ever technically, physically, so I'm ready to go.
You're fighting out of Pure MMA, which is your gym. You're the owner of that facility. I'm just curious, who's been helping you get ready for this fight?
So I represent my academy primarily, but it's not the only gym that I train out of. Mm-hmm. I also train out of the Tiger Showman headquarters with guys like Lyman Good, Jimmy Rivera, Nick Pace, Julio Arce, all those the professionals out of that team, and some other tough guys that are not as well known. And the coaches there, Tiger Showman, his brother Shion Showman, and the boxing coach Ray Velez. So I work a lot there with that team. I also work up at the Miller Brothers Academy. Jimmy and Danny Miller, they've been longtime training partners of mine. So I train up there, and that's where my head coach, Brian McLaughlin, I work with him a few times a week. He's, primarily grappling, MMA grappling, but also game planning and things like that. So I work up there. I work down at Tiger Showman's. I travel around every once in a while, different places, and then I bring really tough guys into my gym as well. I was just grappling with, 6-7-time world champion, Gianni Grippo, he came down. Mark Ramos, another ADCC grappling competitor. My brother, he's a national champion grappler. So I get my work in everywhere. But obviously I represent my own academy just because it is my gym.
How many days a week are you on the road going to different gyms? Do you go once a week to a different gym? Do you go 2 or 3 times a week to a different gym? Besides the training that you do at Pure MMA, how often do you travel to a different gym?
I'm traveling a minimum of 5 days a week. Mm-hmm. So, 2 to 3 times a week I'll go to Tiger Showman's. 2 to 3 times a week I'll go up to Miller's, and I'm at my gym every single day. So, and then on top of those gyms, I also go to, like an LA Fitness where I do my sprints and lifting and swimming and everything like that. So, but I train 2 to 3 times in a day, Mm-hmm. So like, for instance, today I did, at Tiger Showman's. Actually, I went to 2 gyms already today. I grappled at Tiger Showman's, and then I went to a boxing gym, a different boxing gym in Patterson, New Jersey, and then came home, rest for a little bit. I'm going to teach tonight at my gym, and then I'm going to roll with my guys, and then I'm going to go to LA Fitness after. So that's just one day, So really 5 days a week, I'm traveling somewhere. It's all within an hour,
right.
So it's not like I'm traveling 2-3 hour rides, but I'm always on the road.
Mm-hmm. Have you always been big into cross training?
I am a huge advocate for cross training, absolutely. On the East Coast, things are a little bit different than say some of like the mega gyms. I've trained all across the country as well. I've trained at the Hit Squad, Matt Hughes' gym. I trained at Alliance MMA for a little while out in California. I train in Vegas regularly. Syndicate MMA. There's top level guys that come out of all those places. TriStar up in Canada. So I've trained at a lot of different places, and depending on where you go, it's not about the cross training as much as the facility itself. So on the East Coast, there's not like one mega gym that has as much going on. There's more. Like my gym is a large gym, and we offer striking and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling and all these different things. But when I started, it wasn't like that. I did Jiu-Jitsu at a Jiu-Jitsu school, and then I would have to go to a boxing gym for boxing, and I would have to go for a wrestling club for wrestling, and there wasn't as many gyms like mine or Jim Miller's and things like that. So that's kind of just how I came up. And I'm also a very independent fighter. I like to, I manage my own camp. I manage my own career. I don't, obviously I work with coaches. My coaches help me and game plan and everything like that, but I don't need somebody to tell me, okay, it's time to go run sprints, or it's time to do this, or I want you to box this day, or I want you to do this. Like, I know what I need. I'm smart enough to recognize my weaknesses or recognize where I need work, and I know I've been doing it long enough to know how to get in shape and how to peak. So yeah, it's just been something that I've been doing really since I started training.
Now, was it always your plan to own your own gym, or did that just kind of fall into place?
It was always something I wanted to do pretty much after, within the first year that I started training martial arts. I started when I was 16. I always knew it would be hopefully something that I could do, either have my own gym or teach martial arts. I wasn't sure. My dad has owned his own business for 35 years, so I kind of grew up in a family of, with learning from somebody who has run his own thing, done his own thing, been his own boss, and it's something that I always wanted to do. It wasn't initially, the plan wasn't necessarily going to be open it as young as I did, but, just the way things worked out. I had gotten sick for a little while, so I couldn't fight and I couldn't train as much as I normally do. So, and I had a little bit of money saved up from The Ultimate Fighter, and I took a loan from my father and opened the gym, took a shot at it, and thankfully it's been very successful.
What kind of work were you doing before you opened your own gym?
Well, I've been working pretty much nonstop since I was like 13. But while I was training and fighting, I was working as I was working as an electrician's apprentice for a little while. So I was working for an electrician. I was teaching jiu-jitsu at different gyms. Just doing whatever I could. The most consistent was I had worked for a lawyer for a little while. Just jobs here and there. The most consistent at that point was the electrical work, and it just kind of worked itself out in a certain way where the person that I was working for closed his business, and rather than continue to work for it, I went back to college for a little bit, and and then shortly after got picked up by The Ultimate Fighter, and really since The Ultimate Fighter, my focus has been on martial arts. So when I came back, rather than working or just getting a job or going back to school, I decided to open the gym.
Your gym opened in September of 2011. Since tomorrow is September 19th, and September 19th, 2011 was when you opened your gym. For the 4-year anniversary, is there anything special going on tomorrow? Is there some sort of celebration planned for tomorrow, since it is the 4-year anniversary?
We'll probably have something. It's actually our 3-year. I opened the business technically in 2011, but we actually didn't open our doors until 2012. We were planning on doing some things. A couple other things came up, and then we opened tomorrow 3 years ago. And we're gonna do something. We're gonna kind of save the real celebration / grand opening, because we actually moved recently. We expanded our facility. We moved into a facility twice the size, and we're really excited about it. So, and the gym itself has grown a lot over the past half a year to a year. So after my fight, we're gonna do like a kind of a grand open house in our new facility / 3-year celebration / hopefully an after, kind of celebration for winning that title as well. So we're going to kind of just do a little, kind of put it all at once, so I don't have to, plan any kind of party or anything right now.
How big is your gym? How many square feet is this facility? Because I've seen some pictures online, and it looks like a very beautiful facility. It's got a lot of open mat space. It's got a lot of really nice equipment. How big is this facility?
Yeah, the new facility is just about 4,500 square feet. It's about a little over 3,000 square feet of, actually about 3,200 square feet of training space. And what's great is it's allowed us to run multiple programs at one time. So having that ability, so we can take advantage of prime time hours. We have a Muay Thai class and a Jiu-Jitsu class going on at the same time, or we have a cardio kickboxing class going on at the same time as a like a kids taekwondo or something like that. So it's given us the ability to expand our program by a lot, and in turn bring in a lot more students and offer more. And we've grown at such a rate that within the year we're actually planning on expanding again. Hopefully by this time next year we're going to hopefully add another 2,000 square feet of training space.
Now, coming up on October 4th, you're going to be fighting for the Featherweight King of Pancrase title. How much would it mean for you to own this belt?
It's something that I've really been working for a long time. In particular, that belt. I mean, it carries a lot of notoriety. It's a very historic belt within the martial arts, the mixed martial arts world. A lot of really great pioneer fighters fought for that title and won that title. Guys like Boss Root and the Shamrock Brothers, Barnett, who's fighting in Japan in the UFC. He's actually going to be at my fight as well. Like guys like that, and then some other guys that people don't even know. I mean, Pancrase, or don't even know that fought for Pancrase. Like guys like Jose Aldo. There's tons of names of just fighters that have gone through and fought for the Pancrase organization over the years and gone on to become something special. And just the organization itself, it's just like I said, it's a historic organization in the realm of martial arts. They've been around as long or longer than the UFC. And they've produced incredible champions, and to be able to call myself the King of Pancrase, it would be an honor. Something like I said, I've really had only a number of kind of goals in fighting for myself, and the two primary goals were to fight in Japan for an organization like Dream or Pancrase or Pride. Obviously, Pride doesn't exist anymore, but I don't even know if Dream exists anymore. But one of these kind of organizations that's so well respected, and then to fight for the UFC. To be able to fight for this belt, I'm really excited for it. I'm really hoping I can perform and do what I got to do and win that belt. And this one in particular is also a big deal too, just because Fighting Man fan, it's the first time in 12 years or so that two non-Japanese have fought for the belt. The last time was Neat Marquardt against Ricardo Almeida, Big Dog Almeida. So and that was such like a kind of like a historic event in itself. Ricardo fighting really at his prime, and Marquardt before he made his name in the UFC and stuff like that. So it's like these guys, it's a big deal. It's kind of following in their footsteps, and I'm really excited to be a part of it.
How many belts do you have? Whether it's amateur or just small pro shows, how many belts do you have?
0 belts in MMA. I actually I've never been a belt chaser, so to speak. There's a lot of guys that are very, very kind of, that's the focus, is win belts and this and that. I've headlined almost all of my fights outside of my first 3 or 4 fights. But since The Ultimate Fighter, I've headlined, I think, 8 out of the 9 fights that I've had, been a headliner or a co-headliner. But it's never, been about the belt until Pancrase. When I got the opportunity to fight for Pancrase, and I, had been doing well, the idea of being able to fight for that belt was something that I've looked forward to. I've been in situations in the past in other organizations where, I mean, it's kind of a joke, but it's not really a joke. I literally get offered title fights like every other week from some organization wants me to come in and fight for their title. But regional titles mean nothing to me. Medals mean nothing to me. This title means a lot to me. This in particular one, obviously, like a title like Bellator, UFC, and these more prestigious titles. But regional shows, it's not something that I've had my focus on. So I think there's a possibility that I could have, have racked up some titles if I kind of put my focus in that direction. But it's never been about that for me. It's always been about, the experience, gaining the experience, and ultimately fighting for the UFC and, proving that I'm one of the best around.
This is going to be the 5th time you fought for Pancrase. The first time you fought for Pancrase was in July of 2013, and since your first fight with Pancrase, the organization has changed a lot. They've gotten a little bit bigger. They're on UFC Fight Pass. This fight on October 4th will be the first event on Fight Pass, and also they've been kind of on a signing spree. They brought in a lot of American guys. They brought in a lot of guys from other parts of the world. They're really trying to make a push in MMA, and they're really trying to jumpstart Japanese MMA once again. How has it changed since the first time you fought there?
Well, a lot, actually. The first time I fought there was kind of on short notice, and ironically, the person that set up that first fight was Nam Fan. The first time I fought there, I got there. I knew I was going to be fighting in the ring, which they don't use the ring anymore, they use the cage. But I didn't know was that it was the old Pride rules, that we were allowed to kick and knee to the head on the ground and up kick, you could up kick from the guard if somebody was on their knees. Soccer kicks were legal, that whole thing. So, which was awesome for me. I was really excited when I found out. I wish I knew ahead of time so I could have practiced some of that stuff. But, I was it was almost going back in time, fighting in the Wild West of martial arts prior to, the unified rule changes. Now, my first 2 fights were like that. They since adopted the cage and unified rules. So, there's no elbows allowed. There's elbows allowed. There was no elbows allowed originally when I got there. You're no longer allowed to kick or knee to the head of downed opponents, and they adopted the UFC rules. And I think part of the reason they did that is because of I knew they were working on the deal with UFC Fight Pass, which is awesome. Basically the president, the CEO, Masakazu Sakai, I think his name is. I'm not sure if I pronounced it correctly, but he's just done an incredible job, him and his team, of taking Pancrase from where they were to basically even though it's always been a great event, it's not going to be well received internationally if the rules are different. That's the problem. It's like with some of these events, like the American fan base doesn't want to see the same, or want to see the old Pride style rules. The hardcore guys do, but the average fan doesn't. So, I think just to kind of fall into place and kind of be able to take advantage of the jet stream that the UFC has created, they have adopted all the rules and the cage and now being on Fight Pass. So it's changed a lot, but I think it's changed ultimately for the better. I'm just glad that I got the opportunity to fight for them a couple times before they made that change.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Pancrase management, do you think they like the changes, or are they just going with them because they have to go with them? Do you think they like the cage? Do you think they like the unified rules, or are they just going with it because that's the norm?
I'm not sure. I really couldn't tell you. I think the ring and the old rules, I think it was more tradition more than anything. I don't think they care really that much. The thing with the Japanese fight culture that's different than ours is we're sort of a snobby culture. Having our rules the way they are, even with all the commissions, and it's you got to do things this way. You got to have these drug tests. You got to have this and this and this. You got to these rules because they want to appease the public and keep the fighters safe, which I understand, and it's great, and I'm all for it. But when you have the Japanese culture, it's the warrior culture, it's the martial arts culture, so they just have a totally different approach to it. It's just tell me what the rules are, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to fight. It doesn't matter. And it's like that in a lot of different countries, even with different martial arts. It's you have guys that are judo champions, sambo champions, and wrestling champions, and they're all the same guy. They don't care. They just do martial arts. They train, and whatever you tell them what the rules are, they're going to get in there and they're just going to fight, and they're going to follow the rules, and hopefully they win the fight. So I don't think they care as much about what the rules are. I think they like the ring better than the cage, but that's really the only thing. But other than that, I think it's more just like, what's going to work, what's going to continue to help them grow and be more successful and be internationally recognized. Like, they want to be a world standard. They want to be a world player. They don't want to just be like a regional show. And it's working, and that's why they can bring guys like me in, and Nam in, and people from around the world, and Brazil, and Australia, and all over.
You're fighting a UFC veteran for a title in a main event on UFC Fight Pass. So the UFC front office, Sean Shelby, Dana White, those guys, they're going to be watching this fight. Do you think this is the fight that puts you in the UFC? Because if you win this fight, you're on a 3-fight win streak, and you're the featherweight king of Pancrase. Is this the one that gets you there?
I think so. Yeah, I think if I go out there and just do what I got to do and bring that belt home, I think it helps that it helps a lot that I'll be on Fight Pass and the main event and everything, and I'm fighting Nam. But I'm on their radar. I've been on their radar. It's just been about I thought I was going to be there. I lost a split decision that I didn't think I lost. I felt robbed in that decision, so I was glad to, be able to put this win streak back together and get a couple finishes, and like you said, fight for the title for the first UFC Fight Pass event. Yeah, I think all the pieces are kind of falling together, and if I perform the way I know I can perform, I think I'm right there. I think I think there's no denying me. Hopefully.
Does your contract with Pancrase allow you a UFC out? Like, if the UFC comes calling, will they let you go? So I only do one-offs with them, with Pancrase. I do one fight at a time. So with the title fight, that's the only one that's been slightly different, where they want a guarantee that I will defend the title. But they will always allow you out for the UFC. So, because they wanted, again, like, these organizations, especially people like organizations like Pancrase, a big part of it, like, part of what makes you sort of like a legitimate organization on the ground level is, are you producing the talent to go compete with the best in the world? They're not. I don't think Pancrase is trying to build a division that's better than the UFC. Like, you have a couple of big competitors to the UFC, but they're not really. They're B-League, sort of. But like an organization like Pancrase and like RFA, I don't know, CFFC is getting there. Just like some of these organizations around the country, King of the Cage, like, they're not trying to build a division that's going to compete with the UFC. They're trying to build a name around themselves, saying, hey, look, we bring in the best talent that's not in the UFC, and how do you prove, how do we prove that these guys are the best talent? Because they go on from our show and they do well in the UFC. It's an honor for Pancrase to get one of their fighters picked up to the UFC. So the short answer is yes, I have an out to the UFC. How many times have you turned down World Series of Fighting or Bellator, some of these organizations that want you to be a part of their organization long term? Because obviously your goal is to make it to the UFC.
I've turned down a couple of times. I've been offered to fight in the Bellator tournament. But for me, fortunately, again, like with having my gym, it gives me the ability to be very objective in my decision making when it comes to taking fights. So I got offered, like, on 2 weeks' notice, somebody got hurt, and I got offered to jump into the Bellator featherweight tournament like a year ago or 2 years ago. I forget exactly when it was. And I said that I would, but that if I lost at any point during the tournament, that I wanted an immediate release. I didn't want to be signed to the division, to have to fight in Bellator, because I had heard horror stories from other fighters that maybe they make some money in their first couple fights, but then Bellator doesn't have them fight again for a year. They can't go fight somewhere else. They can't go fight for the UFC. And the other thing is like, UFC doesn't like taking fighters from Bellator. I mean, unless it's like, an Eddie Alvarez or somebody huge, a huge name person, it's like if you go fight for Bellator, you're essentially shutting the door to the UFC. So, I didn't say no, that I wouldn't fight for them, but I did say that I wanted, a clause in my contract that said essentially if I wasn't the champion, that I wanted the ability to leave the organization, and they didn't want to give that to me. And for me, like I said, my income is the gym, so I make money through the gym. I don't, the difference of a couple $1,000s, like maybe I would have made like $2,000 or $3,000 more there than I made at whatever show I ended up doing, CFFC or Pancrase or whatever. But I don't need. I have the ability to say no because it's not. I'm not reliant on that money. I'm not like it's not like, oh well, if I don't make that money, I don't eat tonight. And the other thing, same thing with WSOF. WSOF, I've been offered a couple fights for them. The last one, I think it was against the guy Frodo, who actually used to be in Bellator. Tough fight. They wanted me to take it on like 3.5 week or 4 week notice, short notice fight. They were willing to pay, more than I've ever been paid before. But I already had my Pancrase title fight, coming up. So for me, it wasn't like I have the ability to say like, no, this is a more important fight for me right now than that. Even though I could make double the amount of money fighting for WSOF in that particular fight. But now I'm signed to WSOF, and that shuts the door to the UFC. That shuts the door, maybe to continuing. I don't know, would they let me fight for the title out in Japan or not? I don't know. So like I have the ability to say no. So just a handful of times I've said, like I said, it's not that I say no necessarily. It's just that I don't want to get tied down to these organizations. Not right now. Maybe when I'm 30 years old, 31 years old, and maybe it doesn't. It's the potential for fighting for the UFC may not be as possible, as relevant. Then it's like, okay, then yeah, what can I do? How can I make the most of the rest of my career? Then maybe I go in a direction like that. But right now, I'd like to be a free agent.
You were on season 12 of The Ultimate Fighter, and maybe there aren't a lot of fans who remember your run on that show. You lost early in the competition to Kyle Watson, and then you weren't one of those guys who created a lot of drama. You weren't drunk all the time. You weren't doing a bunch of crazy stuff. So I think maybe in the minds of fans, they've kind of forgotten that run that you had on The Ultimate Fighter. But in terms of the matchmakers at the UFC, how much do you think your time on The Ultimate Fighter, how much do you think that weighs into whether or not they sign you?
I think originally, for the first couple of years, it weighed more. I think now it's not as prevalent because, it's been a long time. I have nearly, 10 fights or so since The Ultimate Fighter, or 8 fights, whatever it's been. I'm obviously a completely different fighter, and I have people talking to them, I have people talking to Sean Shelby, and then things like that. So, there's always in the back of my head, I wonder, do they remember, the performance? I can't imagine that they have an overwhelming, because the overwhelming memory. Because the other thing is too is, at the time when I was on the show, I did the show at 155. I'm a 145er, so like now we talk to Sean Shelby. At the time we were talking to Joe Silva. Joe Silva was the one paying attention. So, was Sean watching the season? Yeah, maybe, but. I don't know. I can't really think about it. It's not something that I can control either way. I just have to keep going out there and performing, hopefully the way I've been performing, and, do what I got to do, and then get the right people, talking to these guys for me, and hopefully get me in there, get me my shot.
You're one of the very few fighters that has been a part of The Ultimate Fighter, but at the end of the show, you didn't get that fight at the finale. So I'm just curious, did you ever get a reason out of the UFC on why they didn't give you that one fight in the finale?
They don't give a reason. They never gave an official reason, but you might remember that was actually the same month or same couple months. It was like the same period that they absorbed the WEC.
Right.
So they absorbed like 100 or something like that, or like 50 lightweights and featherweights and whatever. Honestly, like it would have been nice to have an opportunity, but the reality is that I wasn't ready for the UFC then. I wasn't one of the best in the world then. I was a good grappler. I was, a relatively new striker. I could wrestle. I think that on any given day, I could, get in there with, some probably more than half of the division and win. But I didn't have the experience. I had only been fighting for a year. For literally 1 year, professionally for 1 year. I needed the time that I have taken since, and to develop who I am now. Where I feel literally I watch the best in the world, and I train with the best in the world. Like I said, I travel around, and I regularly get in there with guys that are winning fights in the UFC, and I know where I stand against them, and I know where I stand against the best in the world, and I think that even though, like I said, it would have been great to have the opportunity, and you never know. You see guys that do develop while they're in the UFC and end up doing well, so it's always a possibility that could have happened as well. But I'm a better fighter now. I'm an experienced fighter now, and I think it worked out the way it was meant to work out, and hopefully, like I said, hopefully I get the opportunity, because I'm ready to prove that I am one of the best in the world at what I do.
When you left the show, did you think it would be 5 years and 9 fights later, and you still not be signed?
I didn't really think about it that much. I mean, originally I didn't think so. I thought it was going to be kind of a quick turnaround. But I took a year and a half off because I got sick. So that was kind of like the big thing. So I had won a fight right after the show aired, and then I had no contest with Felipe Arantes, who is now in the UFC, a fight that I was winning until he hit me with an illegal shot, and that whole thing. So a fight that I see him doing well in the UFC, and I just think to myself, like, okay, well, there's a guy that I was beating, and whatever, and that was 4 years ago, so it's like, I don't know if I thought it was going to take so long or what, but life just happens in the way it happens, and like I said, I was forced to take some time off. I took that opportunity to open my gym, and now I'm on track and fighting and consistently, and about to fight for in my opinion, one of the most important titles in the sport, and I'm in a good place. I'm still young. I'm only 26. I've got what I've done in the past 5 years. I think I can do even more in the next 10.
Just curious, when was the last time you or your manager talked to Sean Shelby? And also, did you say anything to anyone at the UFC? Because I know not too long ago you were cornering Jim Miller at one of his fights. Did you say anything to anyone at the UFC when you were there?
No, I didn't really get an opportunity. I mean, I just kind of, shook hands and said hello to different people. But, it was Jim's night, and, just kind of focused on Jim. The last contact I had through my manager was a couple months back, and it was just sort of like the same thing. Like just keep us updated if there's an opportunity that I'm near the top of the list for guys to get pulled, stay in shape. Just the same stuff. But I've since started working with Kurt Pellegrino, who's going to be working with me and talking with them, and he's got a very good relationship with the UFC, obviously, and Sean Shelby and Joe Silva and all those guys. So I'm confident moving forward. I think we're just going to get this win, focus on this, and then I think it'll be time.
You're fighting former Team Koscheck teammate Nam Phan. What are your thoughts about him as an opponent?
Yeah, Nam is a man. He's he's a veteran. He's been in there with so many people. I think he's been fighting longer than I've been training. I mean, he's just a gritty guy. He's a journeyman. He puts on some incredible performances, and then he's had some tough losses as well. So, he's skilled. He's skilled everywhere. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's an okay wrestler. He can wrestle a little bit. Obviously, I think he's most well known for his boxing. And I think the biggest thing with him is just the fact that he just kind of is like he'll be in your face if you let him. So like he's a guy that I just have to fight smart with. Can't let him drag me into a Leonard Garcia Nam Fan type brawl. I got to stay on the outside if I'm on my feet and work good technique. And I think I'm the more just a more diverse grappler. I think I have a more expanded knowledge of the whole grappling game. But again, he's good at what he does, so I just have to be better at it. So I'm excited for the matchup. It was, kind of like I said, it was ironic that it ended up being him that I was fighting. It wasn't like I wanted to fight Nam. I wanted to fight for the title, and after Nam got released from the UFC, started fighting in Japan, and just it worked out that he got an opportunity. He got an opportunity to fight for the title, and I became the number one contender, and it just worked itself out that way.
How would you describe your relationship with Nam Fan? Do you consider him a friend?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say we're friendly. We chat. We used to chat every once in a while, or we do chat every once in a while. While we were on the show, I was always very cool with him, and I appreciated who he was, and I appreciate who he is, what he's done, and the experience that he has. I mean, that's a real thing. I would chat with him every once in a while. He always congratulated me. Like I said, he called me. I mean, it was a short notice thing, but he called me when he needed somebody to fill a spot that he was putting together this card not the whole card, but he was putting together a team to go out to Pancrase and fight, and he needed somebody. And, he thought of me because he knew I wanted to fight in Japan and stuff like that. So, it's not like I would talk to him every day. It's not, that kind of relationship. But, once we got matched up together, we just, I just said, hey man, looks like it's going to be you and me. And we haven't really talked since then. I'm sure we'll be, kind of have the same relationship we've had after the fight.
Mm-hmm. Have you always viewed him as potential competition? Because obviously, if things had worked out a little bit differently, you could have possibly fought him in that tournament. And then, when the show ended, he went to the UFC and you went back on the regional circuit and you were trying to get back to where he was. And
right.
Who knows? You could have been scheduled to fight him. And now, fast forward a couple of years, here we are. And, you were signed with Pancrase and he's the champion. So have you always thought of him as somebody who eventually you will fight?
I mean, not necessarily that I would or I wouldn't fight, but you always have that in your head. I mean, and that's what people have asked me about this fight. They're like, oh, is it weird fighting your friend? And I said, well, if I had done my best and he had done his best, we would have fought 5 years ago, for the title of the Ultimate Fighter. So, I don't really, I just take one fight at a time. I never, it was weird once he started fighting in Japan, and that was when I was like, okay, I might end up fighting Nam, because he's out here now, he's, in my division, and, he has some of the following, and, he actually had a view, considering it, but it's not like, 5 years ago, 6 years, the last 4 or 5 years I've been like, oh, I might fight Nam. I never thought that, he was in the UFC at the time,
Mm-hmm.
So, and he had dropped down in the UFC, but it's not something that...
When you were on the show, how much training did you actually do with Nam? Did you go against him a lot in training?
Yeah, we rolled and sparred a few times while we were on the show. I don't remember specifically how much, but enough to remember what our roles were like and sparring sessions were like and stuff.
Now, it's been such a long time. You guys are so different from what you were back when that show was going on. Can you use anything that you learned about him from training with him and living in that house in this fight? Is that even possible at this point?
A little bit, but I think it would be a mistake to, dwell on anything in particular. I'm sure he's evolved, as a fighter in a lot of ways, just like I have. I can't say that I pick out little pieces here and there of but just in general, it's like his size and just kind of his the way he rolls and the way he spars and stuff like that. I can kind of remember a little bit in the same way he can with me and whatever. But I think more so just in watching his more previous fights, I learned more that way than even when I was rolling with him years ago.
Mm-hmm. How many times have you played this fight in your head, whether it's leading up to this fight on October 4th or just I wonder if me and Nam ever fought, maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, whatever, maybe just thinking about, maybe one day I might fight this guy or I might not, or I wonder what that fight would look like, whether it's leading up to this fight or just, in the back of your mind, just watching him fight or thinking about maybe a fight against him. Have you played this fight in your head?
Yeah, I make a habit of, it's like when I go for my runs, I jog a few miles, at night, and I just see not so much the fight itself, just the whole, just different things. If I end up here, my game plan. If I ended up in this position or I ended up in that position, so and so like that. So to an extent, I've played it a number of times, at least 2, 3 times a week, 4 times a week for the past 7 weeks at least.
Now, this is probably a tough question for you to answer because I'm asking you to get inside the mind of your opponent, but what do you think his camp is telling him to do against you in this fight?
I imagine play to his strengths, try to get to the inside. I'm not really sure. That is a tough question, but like I said, I think the obvious thing is play to his strengths and try to play to where they might perceive me as not as strong. So I think his best place is on the inside with me backed up against the cage, that kind of thing, because that's where we're working not to be. Don't let Nam back you up or else he'll blast you in the ribs. There's no secrets. It's we know what he does. He presses forward and then he tries to get you to the cage and he throws overhands and he throws left to the body. It's that's what he does and he's good at it. So I have to respect it. And he knows that you end up on the ground with me, you're in for a tough night. You're in there with a top level black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He knows I'm long. He knows I know how to kickbox and the whole thing. So I don't know. I would say that's probably the route that his corners or his camp would tell him. But you never know. You never know. Maybe he's confident on top that he wouldn't get submitted. I've seen him try to wrestle in his last couple fights. So maybe he shoots. I don't know. I really don't know. I prepare for everything.
Mm-hmm. Prediction for the fight?
Prediction for the fight. I definitely plan on trying to stop the fight inside of a couple of rounds. It's hard. I think right now I've been feeling so strong in just every area that for me it's been deciding where I want to fight. Do I want to try to pick them apart and work on playing that game, or do I want to go to my bread and butter and try to put them away on the ground? So I'll make something outlandish. I'll say second round, go Plata.
Nice.
There you go.
I like that prediction. That's a good one. Andy, real quick before I let you go, do you have any sponsors you'd like to thank, and is there anything you'd like to say to the fans?
To the fans, just keep up with me. I'm not gone. I'm still around. I'm doing well, and like I said, I really, in my mind, not even in my mind. Realistically, I'm undefeated since The Ultimate Fighter. The one fight that I lost, anybody in the crowd, and even one of the judges that scored it for the other guy, I think sees it a different way now. I'm really unbeaten, and I plan to stay that way. I've beaten guys at 155, 145. I'm in it, and I'm in this to make a name for myself and do as much as I can with it. So, for fans, just stay with me. Follow me online at Andy Main on Instagram, or Andy_Main at Andy_Main on Twitter, and I got a fan page on Facebook. My team is really, teams are really everything. The Tiger Shulman team, my coach is there. The Miller Brothers MMA team, my coach is there, and my team and my family at Pure MMA. I mean, those are the guys that I really fight for, man. That's my family. That's like my heart and soul. So, I fight for more than just me now. I fight for these people, and it means a lot to me. So, just a big shout for them. And sponsors like Wrestle Lean and Mean. They're a meal sponsor. They take care of me in my weight cut, make it real easy. And they're awesome. It's just Wrestle Lean and Mean, and then Max Health. It's just a chiropractic and all kinds of stuff. He's local to my area, and he takes care of a lot of people around here too. So, those guys, definitely. I mean, everybody that kind of helps me out.
Andy, thank you for taking the time to talk. I really appreciate it. Good luck October 4th at Pancrase 270 against Nam Fan.
Thanks, brother.